King and her husband, Jamie McFarland, own the Ice House in Niagara. She does the marketing, he makes the wine. Their approach to ice wine, however, is radically different from most wineries in terms of the style of wine they make and how they serve it, from slushies to pairings with chili snacks and wasabi peas. Karen joins me today to talk about that and a whole lot more. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
All right. So before we dive into those aspects about your wine and those interesting pairings, let's talk about some of the research you did recently about ice wine in general, in terms of who's drinking it and when.
Well, we wanted to really have an understanding about who our target group was. So we wanted to know how young people might think differently about ice wine versus the baby boomers, which is our generation. And we found out that the younger people were really open to all kinds of different ways of using ice wine, whereas other people who had been taught that ice wine was a dessert wine, it was a little tougher to change that perspective for them. So then we had a challenge. We said, what can we do to make those younger people really enjoy ice wine?
And was there, I remembering a little bit from the research, it was a 20-80 rule. What was that?
Well, with the 20-80 rule, the idea is about 20% of people drink dessert wine. So that's not a lot of our population. And 80% are interested in ice wine as cocktails. So it was like, oh, here's a great opportunity. What can we do to make people really enjoy the ice wine?
Absolutely, because I always think of ice wine, of course, as our iconic wine in Canada, but we keep saving it for special occasions or gifts or whatever. So I think you're onto something with trying to make ice wine more than just a special occasion wine.
And I think the thing that started to click for me was how, as Canadians, we are seen as more approachable. And we're willing to bend the rules a little bit and not follow tradition in quite the same way. And I love the Olympics when they came out, the Canadians came out in their jean jacket. You know, that's who we are. We're a little more laid back, a little more casual about the rules of drinking. So this is what we're looking at.
Awesome. Okay, so you're breaking the rules in a couple of different ways. Let's first talk about the style of your ice wine and what Jamie has developed there in terms of how the ice wine itself, without the pairings, your style is a bit different from others.
Yeah, and what we did at the beginning, we both have a background in sensory research. So we started off by doing a competitive set evaluation to map out different ice wines to see where they were. And most of them had a real sweet top note, and then they had different fruit flavors. We knew it's part of the terroir and the grape that would give the different fruit flavors, but Jamie was quite fascinated by the whole concept of, could he make his ice wine be more crisp and refreshing by increasing the acidity? And that was his challenge.
Wow. And so is there actually lower sugar content in your ice wine, or is it just that the acidity is a bit more pronounced?
That's it exactly. The sugar content has to be a certain level to be an ice wine, but it's the crispness of it through acidity that really made the difference in the way it delivers in your mouth. And we got really interested in the whole concept of beginning, middle, and end of tasting, the whole taste profile. That's what really made the difference in the aftertaste, the lingering taste that left the mouth feeling refreshed.
Okay, that's great. And what you bring to the table, Karen, is a background in food sensory research and consulting. Tell me a little bit about that, because it was quite different from, the wine field. You were more in the food area.
Right.
Yeah, so what did you do, and how did that help with what you're doing today?
I worked in every food category you can imagine. I did a lot of work for Kraft Canada and US, and then smaller food companies. And it was always about trying to get a balanced flavor that would appeal to more of the people more of the time. So when you start thinking about that in the wine region, most winemakers were not necessarily open to that concept of hearing what consumers wanted. Jamie was the first winemaker I met who was interested in really understanding what consumers wanted. So he had a different slant on how did he want to make his wines. And I love the artisan concept of winemakers want to make a wine that they think is perfect, and chefs do too. But we were really working on this concept of developing wines that people would like based on where they are and perhaps where they want to go.
Wow. And so now you're breaking the rules. I love it, with how you serve ice wine. And one of your signature drinks, cocktails, I'm not sure how you characterize it, is your Ice House slushie, right?
Right.
And so tell me about that.
Well, the thing that really got me excited about focusing on one product like this is with the overall intensity of ice wine, there's an 11-point scale we can rate it on to say whether it's low, moderate, or high. And ice wine is actually high in overall intensity. When we compared it to other beverages, whether it was wine or even Coke, that's more of a moderate overall intensity that will, again, be sort of familiar to people and an intensity that they like. So with the slushie, we said, okay, right now it's high intensity. What can we do to make it less high in overall impact? And I know you're familiar with the late harvest wines, which people have said, oh, I like those wines because they're not quite as sweet. Now you add the not quite as high in overall intensity. You still have the sweetness, the acidity, and the complex fruit. But now with the ice in it, it does become moderate in overall intensity. So people love it. Like we were blown away. We got this great big slushy machine and we said, we're going to make a cocktail. And Jamie had to add water in order to freeze the ice wine. And then I tasted it and I said, it's perfect. We don't have to do anything else. And so then we developed recipe cards so that everyone can make it at home in a blender.
Wow, that is so cool. And we're going to do a little demo today.
Okay.
I hope my ice hasn't melted too much. You've got ice there too?
I've got ice there too. I'm just going to flush it up a bit more.
Okay, great. I'm draining off my melted water. I'm going to put this, I'm not sure what the proportions are supposed to be here, Karen.
Well, here's the simplest way. I put ice cubes in a blender and then I cover it with enough ice wine that it then will slush up. And then I usually actually add more ice.
Okay. All right. And which of your ice wines should we be putting on the ice?
We've tried all of them, and the Vidal is what's called the classic ice wine. And this Northern Ice has that crispness to it, and we feel that this is really the best ice wine for making a very refreshing ice wine slushie. So when you make it, it's something that you drink. Like today, here it's hot today, so my ice wine slushie is getting pretty watery too. I think
than wine.
Well, it's watered down, but I'm going to ask you to taste it anyway because the whole concept is overall intensity. So I'm going to taste it too. I haven't tried it this watered down, so we're creating something new right here, Natalie.
Absolutely. I'm going to taste the ice wine on its own and as a slushie.
Good thinking.
I like to be thorough and hedonistic in my research. Anyway.
Well, that's good because then you'll get an idea of the difference of moderate and intense.
That is so refreshing, and I wouldn't even think, like, just off dry is how it comes across.
Yes, isn't that fun?
It's nice. It's really nice.
Now, I think it's better when it's a slushie, and I usually do this martini glass thing.
Oh, very Cosmo or sexy or something.
Yeah. No, mine's not frozen anymore. It's just gotten too hot, but it really is. It's a nice, elegant drink, but I love the juxtaposition of classy ice wine as a slushie. You know, it makes it more approachable for people, and
it does.
Yeah,
it does, and really... it's simple. It's simple to do. Like just ice cubes in the blender.
Yeah.
And yeah, go ahead.
We did put it on a recipe card because I would have people calling up and say, what was that recipe again? So we do give that out when anybody comes to visit us at the winery. So they have their little card to make their ice house slushies.
Yeah, it's dramatically different, though, I've got to say. The ice wine on its own is beautiful. It's a lovely after-dinner drink. But I really would change this with the ice to the beginning of the meal as a lighter aperitif that's not too heavy, not too sweet, good appetite, whet your appetite kind of drink.
And so while you've got that, Vidal, do you want to try it with the wasabi peas?
Oh, yeah.
Well, so I'll give you the story behind that.
Okay, yeah, wasabi peas. I must say, I went into my local grocery store and they said, what? We don't. You should go to a specialty food store, but I found them per your suggestion in the
Yeah.
bulk barn.
Yeah,
So they're covered with wasabi.
and usually in the nut section of Sobeys or Loblaws, they do have wasabi peas. Sometimes they have them even No Frills sells wasabi peas. I've seen
Right.
them. So
Yeah,
they're
and
everywhere.
it's just Japanese horseradish or mustard seed kind of flavor. It's hot, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
yeah.
And so when we had people coming into the winery and we really wanted to demonstrate the idea of breaking the rules that ice wine is for dessert. So we went back to the pure ice wine. And
Okay.
we're still serving it in smaller glasses because the idea of serving ice wine with appetizers at the beginning of the meal is here was our thought. This is big flavor. You're hungry. Usually appetizers have big flavor and you're hungry. So this with a wasabi pea really does create a party in your mouth. It's the sweetness and the acidity and then the heat and the salt. And I want you to taste it. I hope you haven't tasted it before. Taste it. I'll join you.
This is a new sensation for me, but I've always heard the concept of sweet meets heat, and there's something that happens that's a good thing there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a little bit of heat on that wasabi.
Oh yeah. Boom.
And now take it with the ice wine.
That's nice. That's nice. That really evens each other out.
So once you've experienced that, I think that gives you sort of an incentive to play with ice wine, and it takes it out of the box of this is a dessert wine. And truly, I don't drink dessert wine. I find it's too much of a good thing with a dessert, maybe as a dessert, but I like it at the beginning of the meal. That's when my taste buds are really open to intense and complex flavors, and that's when I like to try it.
Right. And did you ever think of, I suppose maybe this is just too much of a challenge, but bottling the ice wine slushie as a slushie?
Right. We can't actually because of
Okay.
all of the legalities around ice wine. We can't call it an ice wine slushie. It would have to be called something else. And so we think the versatility of the ice wine is the interesting piece. So yeah, you can use it as a slushie, but what I've done with this Vidal is Jamie makes a very simple white wine that doesn't have the kind of fruit forward I like. So I add about 20% of the ice wine to his simple white wine.
I've got a Pinot Grigio here that needs a lot of help.
Okay, really? Okay, try it.
Yeah.
Try it.
So what's the proportion?
Well, you're the blend. It's the art of blending. So you're the winemaker, and this is no, really. Jamie says encourage people to be the winemaker. So put about 25%. What's wrong with it? Tell me what's wrong with it.
What's wrong with it?
Yeah,
Is there supposed to be something wrong with it?
No, I'm talking about the Pinot Grigio that needs help.
Oh, it's just boring.
Okay, yeah. So if it's boring, try about 25%.
Nice. Because the Pinot Grigio had the acidity.
Yeah.
More acidity, but it tasted like beige. And now we've got something that came from a designer guy palette.
Wow, I love it. And I think the trick is to add enough ice wine that there's a threshold, just detectable change, but you don't want to make it into an ice wine. You're just playing.
This is just a richly flavored white wine, almost dry.
Wow, love it.
I love it too. Karen, we are going to continue this discussion because this is amazing. I'm loving all this. It feels like home chemistry with a fun punch. I'm loving it. We will be back soon with you. We've got some chili stacks, some chocolate, and some other ice wines of yours to taste. So stay tuned. We'll be back with you soon.
Sounds great. Thanks, Natalie.